You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum, recorded from a secret location in the city that moves mountains.
Greetings.
We come in peace.
Oh, how's your week been?
Pretty good so far. How about you?
It's been good. It's been good. Coming back this week, no listener email, no question of the week, no Elliott's articles, because we're going to have part 2 of the roundtable discussion.
It's exciting.
With me, you, Elliott, and Eli.
It's a good one.
It's a very good. We're going to talk about the Mantell UFO Incident and the Standford Abduction. Both of those stories took place right here in Kentucky, the Bluegrass State.
That's exciting stuff.
Very, very, very exciting.
I think all our listeners will enjoy this one.
I think they will too. We shouldn't delay. We should just go ahead and get right to it. What do you think?
I agree.
All right.
Without further ado,
here is part 2 of our roundtable discussion. And welcome to segment 2 of our roundtable discussion on Here to Chew Bubblegum. I'm Goose. To my right is Cronkite. We have Elliott of Elliott's article straight across from me, and special guest comedian Eli.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing, sir?
I am nervous, but we'll see how this goes. This is my first time ever being on somebody else's podcast, but it's fun. I think it's going to be a good time. I love stuff like conspiracy theories and especially UFOs, government conspiracies, Bigfoot, like the awesome shirt that Elliott has on today.
Thank you.
This is going to be very exciting. It's an honor to be here.
Well, we are glad to have you here. Now, you do stand-up comedy and getting up and facing an audience. I know that's nerve-wracking because I've done it myself.
This is more nerve-wracking than that,
really?
To me. Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But
why is that? That's strange.
No, man. It's because up there it's just everybody's drunk. You know, it's easy to drunk people just tell offensive jokes. But on here, like, I really got to get my brain working and kind of sound a little bit smart. And when you're doing comedy, you don't have to sound smart, especially with mine. But I've done my homework, though, so
we're good.
We'll have some fun here.
Excellent.
We're going to start out talking about the Mantel UFO incident that happened in our home state of Kentucky. Just a little bit of background. On January 7th, 1948, 25-year-old Captain Thomas F. Mantell, a Kentucky Air National Guard pilot, died in the crash of his P-51 Mustang fighter plane near Franklin, Kentucky, United States, after being sent in a pursuit of an unidentified flying object. The event was among the most publicized of early UFO incidents. Now, Cronkite, we've talked about this on the show before.
We have?
I don't think we've ever talked about it together.
No, I'm not questioning that we have, but I concur. We certainly have, sir.
Okay.
It did sound for a second like, where was I?
I'm asleep right now.
I understand.
Now, I was just reading that, so if some of our listeners are not familiar with that incident, just a little basic background on the Mantel UFO incident. Basically, Thomas Mantell, he tragically died in that crash pursuing the UFO. And, that was very publicized. And it happened in January 7th, 1948, just about 6 months after Roswell. Elliott, we'll start with you. What's your whole take and opinion on the Mantell incident?
Here's the thing. So, Mantell was a World War II fighter pilot. He was over D-Day. He helped, fight at D-Day. He was a well-trained pilot. This is the first, I don't know if y'all realize this, but this is the first Kentucky airman in Kentucky to crash. This was the first death they had. So, wow. I mean, other than this being, a UFO encounter or whatever, this was big news. This was, this was one of those things. But the fact that he is a hero pilot, he's a well-decorated pilot. He's a young pilot, though. He's, what is he,
25.
25. So, I mean, he is not somebody who, he may have a little bit of recklessness about him, I'm sure, but the man flew over D-Day. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, he's been in the thick of things before. So, to me, it makes me wonder if he's that good of a pilot that he survived World War II, he come out, he's in Kentucky. What brought that plane down? Because I don't think it was pilot error. You know what I'm saying? I don't. If you look at the facts of the case, he's chasing after something. They pick it up on radar. He's chasing after it. He has people chasing with him. They pull back. He keeps going. But, like I said, he's been in combat. It's not like it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and you bring up a good point. He was a decorated pilot, and he would know the difference in something that was aircraft from the man-made from planet Earth versus not. Plus, I think he also stated that when he got a close look at this, he said, "Oh my God, there's people in this
There's
thing."
people in it. Yeah, he did. And here's the other thing: Project Sign. Everybody, Project Sign was the project before Blue Book. Mm-hmm. It was what and they came up with. He was chasing the planet Venus. If I'm a decorated pilot, I'm not a decorated pilot. I'm just Joe Schmo. I think I would know the difference between a metallic craft with people inside of it and the planet Venus. You know what I'm saying?
And to your point, he served World War II, flew over Normandy. He had over 2,200 hours of flight time. Mm-hmm. He is a skilled pilot at 25 years old, and you have to think about the times here. Yeah, you said he's a young pilot. He may be a little reckless, but at the same time, this man had to grow up fast in a time of war. He's not going to be a type of person who's looking at, you're right, Venus, or no, he's going to know the difference between a balloon, a planet, and a craft.
And not to continue talking, but you brought up something that I want to mention too. So if it's not Venus, they say it's a weather balloon. What kind of weather balloon moves at 500 miles per hour that a World War II dogfighter cannot catch it and overtake it?
Well, now, according to Project Blue Book, he said he may have died chasing a skyhook balloon, which at the time was a top secret project. But a balloon is just that. It's a balloon. It's not powered. It's right. Floating, right?
As far as I know. Anybody?
Yeah, see, I don't know much about the skyhook weather balloon. And with that being a top secret ordeal at the time, one thing that made sense to me about this theory is that, the government didn't want to be blamed for the first airman in Kentucky to die chasing one of their top secret weather balloons. Sure. So what would look better to the public eye? To blame it on UFOs or to take the blame for the first airman in Kentucky to go down and die.
Right.
And also, one thing that he pointed out that they did get in audio that people say that they did hear is he said it was large and metallic. The skyrocket weather balloon was 100 feet in diameter. It's pretty big. And it was also had aluminum sidings, which would explain the metallic look that he was mentioning. Because whenever it comes to the whole ordeal with him saying, like, oh my God, there's people in it, and some of the other outrageous things that he said, there's only a few handful of people that will say that, yes, he did say that.
Right.
But in stuff like the large and metallic, there seems to be a lot more claims to back those statements up other than the stuff that somebody said that he did say. I wish that we had, they released the actual audio of him talking about this. Mm-hmm. Because whenever you're talking about a story like this, it just sucks so much to rely on he said, she said.
But then you think, you have to, I look at it at the government point of view on that too. If they release it and he actually said there are people inside this, how do they explain that? You know what I'm saying? Exactly. No matter what, how do they, and even if it was to this day, the skyhook, I've been reading about the skyhook while you were talking there. The skyhook wasn't a manned,
Yeah.
So the people inside, where did they, same thing that happened at Roswell. So in 1994 they come back and say it's a weather balloon, and then
it had test dummies.
Who in the world's putting test dummies in a weather, again, I'm not a person, but if I'm in the military, but if I'm testing a weather balloon, why am I putting dummies in it? You know
right.
What I mean?
And to your point, as far as a balloon goes, you could, if there were people inside of it, and they did release that, you could say, well, the government could come back and say, because at this time, keep in mind, there are still Zeppelins. Hindenburg was in 1920 or 13 or something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which would fit the description of a large metallic craft with people inside.
Now, Led Zeppelin came later.
When did they come around?
I don't know.
When they came around when the levees broke.
Okay.
That's when they came around.
I like that. It was a smooth transition. What do you think about that?
Yes, it was. Elliott is quite the guy.
Yeah, certainly.
I mean, in this whole case, I think they've always said, when they can't explain something, it's a weather balloon.
Right, and
I think they need to come up with some new BS because I'm not buying a weather balloon.
See, but in some instances like this too, it may not be aliens. It may just be other top secret aircraft at the time that they didn't want to mention at the time. So, it's top secret weather balloon, not a top secret whatever else it
Now,
may
Well, no,
be.
you're exactly right as far as that goes. Now, because right around this time is when commercial aviation is going to start to take off. So, playing with
the
pressurization.
40s was an incredible time for that,
Right.
especially with the Nazis and
Exactly.
everything else.
Okay, and you made a very good point. But if that was the fact, wouldn't they let, once this chase started, you know, the Army's structured, you have a chain of command to follow, and it starts going up. You know, I'm sure people in the control tower started getting a hold of people above them. If that was the case, and it was a secret Army project, wouldn't they say, "Hey, tell him to disregard. We know what it is." You know.
Well, see what.
Or wouldn't you give them a heads up the day before? Hey, if you're getting reports of strange objects, we're going to be doing some tests. Don't ask any questions.
Yeah, you would think. But one thing that really I have a big question about is I know he's this experienced pilot and all that stuff, but why did he keep descending up to a point of no oxygen with everybody that was falling behind him turning around?
Right.
You would think that, sooner or later you're going to lose oxygen, man, and you're going to crash.
So he had the first visual of it. Like, of course they've got it on radar and the people with him. If I'm a pilot and I'm an American pilot and I see something that I don't know what it is, I mean, I'm speculating. I can't be in Mr. Mantell's head, but I'm gonna chase that until I get that order to come back, because that is something completely different. And could be it's flying over my home state. You know what I'm saying? I am a hero pilot. It's flying over my home state, and we don't know what it is, and nobody on the ground knows what it is. I'm doing my due diligence. I'm chasing that, but I understand exactly what you're saying.
I just wish that he would have turned around, because then he could have lived to actually tell us. Yeah.
I mean, you could have gotten tunnel vision. I mean, that happens a lot.
See, that's what I was thinking too. With as you were saying, like it was going 500 miles an hour. What if it was just tunnel vision due to the lack of oxygen that made him think it was going
He's just
that fast?
He's just locked onto this object, and he's trying to get there, and he's not paying attention to his altitude. I think I read something that says that 28 to 30,000 feet is where he finally lost control of the aircraft and started coming down.
Yeah, 14,000 feet is where you need to put on your oxygen mask in those old P-51s, and I think he had already got up to 22.5 when the other planes had disengaged.
Well, and there was only one aircraft that was actually equipped with oxygen that I read, and it was one of the others that turned around.
Well, I didn't. That's a good thing
Now,
to know.
there is also a conspiracy on the crash. Some people claim that his body was riddled with bullets. Some people claim that he was not injured at all. Some people claim that his head was taken off. What's some of your guys' thoughts on that?
I think if you're going to have a high impact, high speed, and steep impact into the ground, I don't think you'll be able to tell much about the body.
That's
you know
what I'm
I mean?
saying. Yeah.
Now, if he blacked out from lack of oxygen, depending on his rate of descent, he could have woken up, before he hit the ground and maybe regained control. But at the same time, if that actually did happen, if he could have regained control, why wouldn't he have? You know what I mean? If it was his aircraft damaged too badly, was he injured? What's the problem? Because I read something about that he was heading towards a school, and at the last minute he supposedly veered off and crashed by this lake. Now, that's what somebody had written something about that. But if that were the case, those P-51s are pretty quick as far as being able to maneuver. For the time, you know what I mean. And so it seems to me like if that were the case, if he were able to maneuver away from a school, he would have been able to pull out of a dive or a spiral or whatever. But now I don't know. I mean, for whatever reason, Mr. Mantell crashed this aircraft. He was either unconscious or the aircraft was damaged too badly. And if that's the case, then I don't think that he would have been able to steer away from the school.
Right. Well, Air Force Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, the first head of Project Blue Book, wrote about the Mantell crash. He wrote that he'd always heard a lot of wild speculation about the condition of Mantell's crashed plane. He wired for a copy of the accident report. And he is noted as saying that it said Mantell's body had not been burned, had not disintegrated, was not full of holes, and the wreck was not radioactive, nor was it magnetized. Again, Mantell was the first member of the Kentucky Air National Guard to die in flight. And that is an official report from the later on head of Project Blue Book.
Wow.
Yeah, I seen that too, but it just doesn't make any sense to me that his body was, all good after falling 30,000 feet from the air in something that will explode when it hits the ground.
Sure.
I don't.
Well, unless he was out of fuel. If he was out of fuel, there's not going to be much of a fire or an explosion or whatever. Which now could have been. Well, no, that could be. They could be a series of events that actually caused this airplane to crash. He could have blacked out at around the same time that he was running out of gas. You know what I mean? Because it says the other two pulled back when they were getting low on fuel.
Exactly. Yeah.
There was a neighbor. I think the crash happened. I think, and again, I've left my notes. I brought the wrong notebook, but I'm going by memory here. But
200, way to go, Elliott.
250 yards. I'm sorry, 250 yards from the house. She watched the plane crash. A local firefighter is on record as saying he's the person who helped get Mantell's body out of the aircraft itself, and that he had been decapitated. That's where that report comes from. And later on, he even mentioned that his watch had stopped at, I think, 3:18 p.m.
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
So, and then the coroner actually backed up the whole watch had stopped at 3:18 p.m. He had noted that in the official report. But then there's an author, his name is Timothy Good, and he wrote a book about the Mantel incident, and I cannot remember the title of the book. If anybody can find that book and let us know if anybody's got it in your all's notes. But he actually got a hold of pictures of the plane. He noted that the Navy did not send anybody in to investigate the plane or the area for 12 hours after the crash. So no official military investigator got there for 12 hours, even though it was that close to the base. Mm-hmm. So that tells me something. That tells me, something's up there. Yeah. Also, in those pictures, you can see tiny holes in the side of the plane. What that could be, I don't know. I'm not even going to speculate on that. It's just tiny holes inside of the plane. But the plane supposedly dropped from 30,000 feet. The wings and the fuselage are, according to Good, and there are photos out there, they're all intact. And the cockpit itself had no blood. So, if the fireman is correct, and he got the body out, the body was missing a head, shouldn't there be blood in that situation? I mean, you would think there would be.
Well, I would think if the aircraft fell from 30,000 feet, the wings
wouldn't be on right either. That's the other point I was going to make. And then the last thing is a lot of the witnesses, and this is in the official report too, heard 2 explosions before it hit the ground. So where were those explosions from? What caused those explosions? And it's an interesting case.
It's a very interesting case, and there is one way that we can find out exactly the shape and the condition of the body. If anybody has a shovel.
I mean,
hey, listen. You gotta go to extreme. You gotta go to extremes nowadays.
I was doing research midway through.
Why is your face turning red? Yeah, it's just a stupid joke. It's no disrespect.
Oh no, we're doing it. We're doing it. We're not joking around. But that don't. To me, that don't look like a plane that went down in a downward spiral.
No.
It seems like, well, if somebody did say that he regained control and steered away from the school, it does look like it landed
as good as it could.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was still probably going really fast and hit a lot of trees and still died because of the impact. Sure. But I just don't think that's a downward spiral.
No, I don't either. Why did your face turn so red when I made that joke?
Because I was lost. I wasn't sure what we were talking about. Because I'm trying to figure out the book. But Elliott was talking about.
Him up, man.
I got you. I'm with you. I'm with you now.
I was trying to figure out where to get the shovels from. I was like, well, I know I've got one. But.
So Timothy Good, being a British author, he had several books, and he had the Worldwide UFO Cover-Up. Is that the one maybe you're talking about?
I'm thinking it is.
1987.
Yes, I believe so. He had done a Freedom of Information Act. Somehow had stumbled upon the photos. The photos weren't public knowledge up until his book came out, as far as I remember.
There's several books here about UFOs.
Okay. So, I mean, Timothy Good, though, I can always put it in a future Elliott's article, like
Yeah,
just
definitely.
throw that in
Definitely.
there. But I feel like I've talked way too much already.
No.
I feel like you're all like...
and I hope I didn't offend you by that joke.
No, I said,
I just you would think though, like,
nothing offends me.
I wonder how the government figures out what stuff becomes public knowledge after so long. Because they released quite a bit of stuff. Was it last year or the year before? Why wasn't this in there?
And well, they recently released a bunch of stuff back in the end of January. None of this stuff is in there.
Yeah. See, that's another thing that kind of.
And what they did release was all redacted anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, they could even take the blame for the pilot back in the 40s. Today, nobody's going to care about it then.
No. So, bottom line, I definitely think something strange and unexplainable.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's something strange in the equipment they were using, there was something that's just not right, and something I think that needs to be looked into.
And if it's something strange as far as man-made object within our own government, that's definitely strange in itself.
When we're talking about this, and we've talked about it a lot on the show, I don't want to go back to it, but that could have been Nazis that had survived.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, if you go down that theory.
Well, Operation
and there's
how many were here?
There's a lot of good stuff in that. NASA was created basically by we use the Nazis to create NASA.
Werner von Braun.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All these
I mean,
people.
whenever it comes to whole aviation and spacecraft, the Nazis they were pretty good at it. You got to give.
And that goes back to the Black Forest incident in 1936, which was their Roswell incident.
Yeah. And you cannot find a lot about that.
Well, and that's around the time we've talked about this
Very
before.
minimal.
Is when Hitler started coming into power, and they started putting a lot of lockdown on the information that was coming out and to the public. And so, there's not a whole lot of information that comes out about Germany in that area anywhere in that time, anyway.
And this is going to sound horrible, and it's all skewed.
It really is. I already made a joke about digging him up, so it's not going to sound horrible.
No, but we won the war. And the winners, write the history books. So,
back-to-back world champs.
Back-to-back world champs. So, we don't know what kind of, there's a conspiracy theory that says that the way we got the nuclear weapons was we found a sub and we found a defector, and that's Germany had already made them and we just took them and used them. I don't believe that, but all this stuff is out there. You know what I mean? You're never going to get a clear picture of what happened there.
Well, and you make a good point as far as that goes. I remember growing up in school and learning, about history and World War II, things like that. I was never told that there was an actual aircraft battle over U.S. soil, and that was in Alaska during World War II. I didn't know that.
Well, I never heard of that either.
Well, and that's what I say is, like he says, the winners write the history. So of course they're not going to tell you.
I was never told about Nikola Tesla in school, and I would have loved to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me just go ahead and throw this out there. Nazis are bad. I don't think.
Seems like we talk about Nazis a lot on this show.
We do not like Nazis here.
Not
We're not fans of Nazis. Nazis are bad.
Yeah, we
talk about them a lot.
Just because their technology was so advanced.
Well, and that's what we're talking. That's kind of what we talked about once before. Is like something had to happen, and because either it's in the water in that specific area of the world that there was this many super geniuses.
I don't think it was in the water.
Or they had a crashed craft. That's the only. In my opinion, that is the only two options that there could be, because at the time, 1920s, 30s, 40s, this technology doesn't exist.
I mean, we're going down a whole other lane here. We could talk about Foo Fighters. We could talk about the Battle of Los Angeles. We could talk about all these different things.
We're going to move on. And
I agree with you. Wait, one second before we move on. Hold on a second. Let me throw this out here. And again, I'm talking way too much, but I found this when I was going through some stuff. So I'm gonna throw out an incident, and you tell me which one I'm talking about, okay? And it should be real easy. A young World War II decorated pilot in a P-51 chasing after an unidentified flying object or an unidentified aerial phenomenon.
The Mantell incident.
Incorrect. The Gorman dogfight in Fargo, North Dakota, which happened just 6 months later, is almost an identical copy to what happened with Captain Mantell, except the Gorman, who was the World War II hero at that time, flew, like, disengaged and came back. Same thing was brought up. It was a weather balloon. Nope, it wasn't a weather balloon. He was chasing. This time they did make it a little bit different. They said this time he was chasing the planet Jupiter instead of the planet Venus. So I mean, this stuff, like I don't know if we talked about it on air, if this was before, but all of this stuff happened in the 1940s, 1947 and 48. It's so strange because it's brand new. Right. No one knows what to think of it, and it's happening all over America.
Yeah. Well, let me add to that and tell you a case and see if you all have heard of this. There is a kid that's living with his aunt and uncle in the desert. He does not know his mom died early. And I can already tell by your look, you know what I'm talking about. You want to go ahead and take a guess?
Is his sister part of the royalty of a faraway place?
Yes, she is.
Yeah, I think I got it.
I'm talking about Star Wars.
Well, whenever it comes to the 40s, that's what really got me into aliens, because something, to me, it made sense. We're much different than anything else on this planet. I mean, coyotes are a lot like chihuahuas. They're, size difference, but they all walk on fours. Basically, there's so many animals here on Earth that are like other animals. There is nothing like human beings. And if we have been genetically altered throughout our history to become what we are now, you don't see any giraffes recording a podcast. We're the only creatures on Earth that records podcasts. If we are a form of genetic mutation from something else, and they are keeping tabs on us, like almost like the Truman Show, they watch us. Whenever we start dropping nukes on each other and start having actual world wars, they're probably going to come down and say, what the hell are you monkeys doing? You got to calm down. And you never heard it. Well, I guess you heard instances of UFOs before the 40s. But whenever World War II happened, it's like it kicked into high gear.
You had more sightings and stuff.
Yeah. And that's just something that's what really got me interested in UFOs in the first place, because that's something that is just weird about it.
Now, there's some theories out there that there was UFOs, but that they've died off, and that's why we've never been contacted again. That's one of the conspiracy theories out there. And then there's one that says there's like 6 different species, and they've all visited Earth.
Yeah, but and you don't really know what to believe, but whenever you start looking back in like ancient scripture, or the writings on the wall in the Great Pyramids of Giza, or even in, I forget where it's at in South America, but the things that were drawn in the earth. Yeah, you can only see from the sky. There's just some stuff that you cannot explain. And we may have been that advanced in a before time, and then a catastrophic event happens that puts us back in the Stone Age. Who knows? Or it could be that we're not alone. Hell, you look up in the sky, you see thousands of stars. Yeah. A star is a sun with planets revolving around it. You mean to tell me with that many billions of chances of life that we're the only ones? I don't think so.
Well, what's scarier? That there's something out there, or that there isn't? Like, which one's the scarier thought?
Exactly.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good
and it could be either one. That's the thing.
It's crazy.
To me, it would be that there isn't anything.
Yeah, who wants to be the only thing?
And go back. We've mentioned it on the show a few times. We did even a segment on it. The Reagan Diaries, 1985 or 86, he wrote that he had saw a craft on this planet that could hold 300 people in 1985. Well, and he even asked the Soviet leader Gorbachev, if we needed your help, would you help us? So he wrote that in his diary in 1985, that we had access to a ship that could hold 300 people in space. No. So
and I believe it too, because I come from a really big military background in my family. I've got family members that were in weapons and development within the military, and they've told me some pretty wild stuff about inventions that they had way back in the day. Like they had discs that were almost like CDs and DVDs back in the 70s. Right. I've got family members that worked on the Blackbird before that was released back to the public, and they even said that they've tried saucer craft before, but it's just hard to get it to operate. So they don't mess around with it.
When you look at the nuclear bombers, what are they? They're triangle crafts. You know what I mean? They're
exactly.
They're triangle crafts.
But some of these, whenever it comes to some instances of UFOs, and almost like the Mantel case to me, it would make sense for it to be some type of top secret thing that the military is working on, that they don't want to take the blame for the death over somebody chasing it. But I mean, and who knows? But I wish that they would release more about it. I don't know why they haven't. And to me, that is weird.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like, if the skyhook balloon is not classified anymore, we know what it is. There's a Wikipedia article on it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, why not release that information?
Exactly.
So,
You're exactly right. As far as the nuclear power or the nuclear bombers go, yes, they are trying. They're delta wing shaped or whatever. But we are the only country in the world that will honestly take an aircraft that was built in the 50s and revamp it to where it's going to last 100 years. The service life of a B-52, which is also a nuclear bomber, is up until 2052 now.
Wow.
Which is, yes, it's over 100 years for one aircraft.
That's crazy.
That's insane. But at the same time, we're
Yes, it is,
we're
because,
spending $5 billion on a delta wing. I'm over $5 billion. I'm sure it's more than that now. You know,
Yeah.
but we're the only country in the world that would take a 1920 or a 1986 Cutlass Supreme and put a LS motor in it and send it for another.
well, hello, G. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
But you all said it the other day. I can't remember which show it was. I listened to all of them, by the way. I just want you to know.
Thank you.
You know, considering, you know, that Elliott, he's really good.
Yes,
but
yes, he is.
and I wish more people would mention my name when you write in, people. Gosh. Okay. Anyway, but you all mentioned it the other day that the military is so far ahead of what we have as civilians, as far as, you know, technology goes. Like, imagine what was out there. You know, I mean, I'm thinking of those Evangelon robots from Japan. You know, they've got a huge one like that.
Yeah.
Like, what do we have, and where is it at?
Yeah.
Like,
what are they not telling us about, you know?
like-
I mean, even something as simple as the Blackbird. I mean, everybody knows about it now, but back in the day, that was top secret stuff that you did not mention.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and you know, nowadays, I can FaceTime somebody in Japan on this phone right here. I can see somebody on the total different side of the world. And this right here is public knowledge. This right here, the iPhone, is crazy in itself. One of the craziest pieces of technology that we have. What are they not telling us about?
Yeah.
If I would have had an iPhone when I was a teenager back in the late 80s, I would have been in a world of trouble. You know, I would have been in a world of trouble. So, but, you know, I mean, yeah, you know, like you said, talking about that, I mean, that's stuff they did on Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
And also, too, whenever it comes to some UFOs, and even this may be the Mantel incident, we're kind of naive to think like we're the only country that is this advanced with aerodynamics. I mean, Germany, if it wasn't for Germany, we probably wouldn't be anything whenever it comes to aerodynamics.
100%.
That's a fact.
And who's to say that, you know, like,
Again, Nazis bad.
Nazis are very bad, but dang, them guys are smart when it came to airplanes.
They were very
But
smart.
you know, who's to say that this might not be a Russian craft that is just trying to one up the United States or something like that? Say, hey, look at us. Kind of like one incident that I love and that not a lot of people know about, and it's hard to explain. And I'm sorry that I'm rambling here.
No, please.
But
feel free.
was it back in the 50s that the lights came above the White House?
Yeah.
Yes.
That is crazy.
Yeah, there was a whole flap. Like it lasted for like 2 weeks, I think it was.
It was something crazy. And I mean, everybody's seen it. Thousands upon thousands of people seen it, and you don't hear crap about it.
And then it happened again, just a couple of years ago, too, didn't it? 2017 or 18?
It was late, but it was, middle 2000s, something like that.
Yeah, it happened again.
So I mean, like, who's to say that's not the theory about an alien race that's keeping tabs on us, saying, hey, well, calm down. Or if it's Russia, China, whoever, saying, but we're good too. We got a military too.
If I had to pick between aliens and a zombie apocalypse, I think I would choose the aliens.
Yeah, I mean, it's more likely. In a weird sense, it is more likely.
You know, actually, the CDC has a complete
I seen
guidelines on what to do in a zombie apocalypse.
The Kentucky Wildlife Organization put out a Bigfoot notice.
Yeah, I
the other day. Did you see that?
Yeah, I
That was
seen that.
amazing.
Was that real? 100%
That was real.
legit?
Like, they really did. I think it was a joke, you know.
Okay,
like,
gotcha,
but it was put out. Yeah, I mean, they released it. So.
Well,
But next time, if y'all ever talk about like Bigfoot and Yetis, I'd love to come back to that podcast.
For sure.
I like
definitely
stuff
have you
like
back.
that.
I mean,
Definitely have you back.
But who knows?
Elliott, you rolled your eyes when I said zombie apocalypse.
no, I was thinking, I don't know, aliens instead of. I think I would rather take the zombies.
Really? Why?
I mean, you can shoot a zombie in the head. We don't know where the head is on an alien.
But, you know,
Just
I
because
mean,
it's got eyes up there, don't mean that's where its brain's
Yeah,
at. You know, like-
True.
look at all the
Man.
TV shows we've always overcome and conquered.
That's true.
You know.
Well, I mean, yeah, and as long as Will Smith is alive, I think we're okay. But I don't know. I think I would rather go with the zombies.
Yeah, well,
It's a hard choice.
Yeah, that would be a much safer bet because if somebody,
What about you?
If
Which
an,
one would you choose?
well, if an
Alien
alien
invasion,
race is
zombies?
advanced enough to come light years away from a different galaxy into ours, we don't stand a chance. We can barely
There you
get to
go.
Mars at this point.
No, you're
We-
exactly right. But we
Well-
got to make sure that we're like, hey, we make really good pets. Y'all just feed us and water us. We're good.
Well, there's that.
you know,
I mean,
we got to hope for it. Just beg for mercy, basically.
and the other thing is, I mean, aliens are in ships that move 500, 1,000 miles per hour. Zombies, they're slow. I'm a fat guy. I can get away from a zombie.
Represent,
Now,
Elliot.
yes.
Represent.
But
I'm
now,
with you right there, bud.
Aliens, not so much. You know.
It's true. Yeah, aliens don't eat the McDonald's and all
Right.
that. Yeah, and I'm getting right there with you, man.
And I mean, yeah, you're real close. I don't know.
I'm up to extra large now.
Yeah.
extra large.
Lay down
Extra-
over there before you
large.
hurt yourself.
Extra large. Now there's a size I haven't heard in a long time.
This is about 13.
but whenever it comes to aliens, I don't know if it's like little green men. Hell, they could look just like us. But if they do,
They could.
and they're probably more advanced and better fitted, whatever. Yeah, we don't stand a
Well,
chance.
you know, I have always envisioned, you know, if they do exist, that their body is adapted to their planet, their environment.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yeah, and there's
Like
a lot
the
of
Mars
Earth-like
attacks
planets out
aliens
there.
with the domes on their head.
Yeah.
Coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Mantle case is weird. Another one that I didn't know about before today is the abduction story about the three women.
Yes.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
going to move on to that briefly. Eli's on a time schedule.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can understand a working comedian is always booked. The Standford Abduction. It happened on January 6, 1976, right here in the bluegrass state of Kentucky. Just a brief synopsis. Three friends, three ladies, were celebrating Mona Stafford's 36th birthday. Her friends Louise Smith and Elaine Thompson, they decided to drive 35 minutes from their home in Liberty, Kentucky to a diner at the Redwoods Restaurant between Stanford and Lancaster, Kentucky. They were driving a 1967 Chevy Nova. On their way back, they reported seeing strange lights in the sky. At first, they thought it could be a police car with the blue lights and so forth. Suddenly, the car accelerated, even though Mrs. Smith took her foot off the accelerator to a speed of 85 miles an hour. Mona Smith was in the front passenger seat. She tried to help Louise regain control of the car, but that was not possible. The women began to feel a burning sensation in their eyes. The ignition lights lit up the instrument panel, and an indication on the car's engine was stalled, but they were speeding along. They saw a wide, brightly lit road ahead of them, and then seconds later the scene became Highway 78, and they recognized they were on the outskirts of Huttonsville, a full 8 miles from where they had been. Checking the time, they found an hour and 20 minutes had passed. So, they supposedly were abducted.
See, what I like, I like this one best out of all the stories that you sent me, because I can find holes in the other two.
Right.
But with this one right here, it's really difficult. And, I mean, so many people seen strange lights in the sky that night. There was all types of activity. The ladies underwent the hypnosis thing, all said the same thing. The police guy, whatever, he
Give them a lie detector.
gave a lie detector test. They all passed it. There's just this is a hard one to find holes in.
Well, now, how do you explain as far as the car accelerating, but it was off? Do you think that was a tractor beam or whatever? I mean, do you think that was that was actually them being abducted at that point, or?
It could have been. They could have took the whole car.
Because I mean, you're thinking about a '67 model vehicle. If there's no technology in that to accelerate a vehicle, even with interference. So, to me, that screams the beginning of their abduction. That's when whatever was there was taking them, and they were just seeing the cars moving quicker than we were, and that's the only thing they were. That's what they reported.
And it could be like bending space and time, because one theory is to move across the galaxy as fast as we want to. That's something that you have to do, is be able to bend space and time. That's something that a lot of scientists have messed around with, and it's freaking terrifying. Yeah. They can start a black hole or something. But if somebody's exactly. If somebody is advanced enough to come down here and check us out or whatever, the whole that could explain the whole loss of time.
Sure.
Who knows? That was just one theory that I had in my mind.
I think one of the coolest things about this is the fact that they all had eye problems. It's called cleve conjunctivitis. And usually, it's like pink eye, but you usually get it from staring into the sun too long or from radiation.
And stink eye's what you usually have, Cronkite.
And
I'm gonna fart bare-assed on your pillow.
One of the best things I ever heard though was Point Pleasant. We all know who the Mothman is.
Yes,
good guy. He's nice, big wings. But a lot of the people who saw the Mothman also came down with cleve conjunctivitis. So to me, that says there was some kind of radiation source there. What that I don't know a lot of radiation between Huttons. Is it Huttonsville?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there a lot of radiation in Huttonsville?
But and didn't the lady say they had some burns on their was it their back or their neck or something?
Let's see. When they got home, they found red marks on their backs of their neck.
Yep.
And they all had the burning and irritated eyes.
Yeah. See, it's hard to explain that. And supposedly there's not a single drop of alcohol that night either.
My favorite description of this was all three were nice church-going people. There was no alcohol involved.
Yeah. Let's see. Eddie, Louise Smith even said that when she splashed water on her face, it caused her pain.
Mm-hmm. And another thing that I found, see what to me will disprove a lot of people and their stories and stuff is whenever they're trying to profit off of it. Mm-hmm. That's one big problem that I have with Bob Lazar.
Definitely.
I mean, how did he know about Area 51? There's a lot of stuff there, but whenever you start trying to profit off of your story, to me that takes a lot of the I don't know. Well, it just seems like you're trying to make money more than actually prove what you've seen is real or prove or try to convince the aliens exist. You're trying to make a buck, it seems like to me. But this lady right here, she never tried to profit off of her story, didn't even really talking about it. And I watched interviews, and I know in y'all's line of profession, you can tell when somebody's lying.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that I'm kind of good at that, and it just seemed like she's seen something.
Sure.
I mean, there's not a lot of. Heck, I watched her when she was old, but I just don't think that I had a good vibe from her. I'll say that. Who knows?
That's one of the things I look for, though, is if they're trying to make money from it.
Yeah.
Me too, and we've even talked about that on the show. People making money.
Yeah.
But, you mentioned Bob Lazar. Yeah, he did make money, but I think he's legit.
I do too. He's one of the most I would want to believe him more than anybody else in my life. And it's just whenever he started that dang website, man.
Did you know that he owns a hardware store?
A nuclear hardware store.
Well, see, here's the thing.
Is that the website that?
No, so that's the thing. It's like, all right, so if the government financially ruined you and took away, you would have to do something. You'd have to start a nuclear hardware store. I mean, how do you think that they split
these immigrants?
How do you
free
think
food and housing and stuff too? Couldn't Bob Lazar get that?
No, because they don't like Bob Lazar. That's
Nazis
the government.
Are bad.
but also think about this. I mean, how do you think they split the atom? They've got to have a nuclear chisel and a nuclear hammer. That's where Bob Lazar comes in. That's a fact.
Yeah, he we were talking about this weeks ago, and he had a train of thought, and he said that Bob Lazar owned a hardware store.
Listen, because I knew it was something along those like a supply store or something, but in my mind it was a hardware store. So I was like, yeah, it's a hardware store.
If Here to Chew Bubblegum ever gets merchandise, we need a Lazar's nuclear hardware store.
That's actually a good idea.
Definitely.
We need that.
Great idea.
But this woman right here, she never tried to profit off of anything, and rarely even like talking about. I think the other two women hardly talked about it at all. If I read everything
well,
correctly.
they were so worried about it that I think only one of them even went to the hospital for their eyes. Like they all three had really severe eye burns and eye problems, but one of them, like the two of them, were like, "No, we don't want anyone to know this. You know, we don't want anybody to think we're crazy. You know."
Yeah, exactly.
But,
And you, three church-going women, they're not the ones that want to be at the front face of a conspiracy theory. I can understand that.
And you mentioned this earlier. In July of 1976, the Lexington Police Department Detective James Young separately gave the three women lie detector tests regarding their experience. They all passed with no problems. And then later that evening and continuing to the next day, extensive hypnotic regression of the women were also performed, and they told the exact same story.
Exactly.
So,
It's, that's it's either they really got their stories together, or there was something to it. And what really gets me about this story, though, is just thousands of people around the area seeing something weird that night. You don't just have these three women.
Yeah.
You have thousands of people all from around the area that said that they seen strange lights in the sky at the same exact time in the same place. So that's what's really good to me.
that's not a really well, like at the time in the 70s, those roads weren't like they are
lit.
now. Like,
Sure.
Yeah, so like you're not seeing, like you're not got a lot of traffic that's going by. So that's a perfect place if you're going to abduct somebody.
Right.
Exactly.
That's. I mean, I can't speak for the aliens. I don't know. But if I was going to abduct somebody, that sounds even worse. You know what? Nazis are bad.
You sound like you've
know,
been there
I've
before
thought
a
about
time
it.
or two.
So did you say you had shovels? Is
So-
that what you
Yes,
said?
yes.
Okay, I was-
Shovels and flashlights.
All right.
So,
I have to ask you this, Elliott. Where were you at? What was the date?
January.
Where were you at in January of 1976?
I have to plead the fifth.
Okay.
Sorry, Glazarnock.
Well, we're going to take a break. I want to thank Eli for sitting in on this
Thank
segment.
you.
We're going to come back in just a little bit. We're going to have Ned join us, and we're going to talk about the Paintsville Train versus UFO incident. We'll be back in just a moment.
I believe that in a dream I caught a glimpse of heaven, sailing on the open seas, you and I together, and I believe it can be that way.
Do you have a Roku device? Do you want to escape the everyday? Then download the Edge TV. That is the Edge TV on your Roku device, spelled capital T, capital H, #3. Let James, Stacy, Greg, and the rest of the gang keep you entertained. The Edge TV, available now on Roku.
You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum, recorded from a secret location in the city that moves mountains.
Greetings.
We come in peace.
Aliens land in our area.
All right.
What are some of the people on weekends going to get drunk and do?
Shoot it.
They're going to go out. I'm going to go out here and shoot at this ship. Our next email is from Cronkite Lover from North Carolina.
Hey now.
Cronkite, you are ear and eye candy.
Be sure to check out HereToChewBubblegum.com.
Hey everyone, this is Goose from Here to Chew Bubblegum. I want to tell you about my friend T-Shirt Joe at FastCustomShirts.com. T-Shirt Joe is your go-to guy for all your custom work. Also, you can check out their website and find artist originals, college shirts, comics, famous folk, fetish, military, movie shirts, occupations, podcast and website shirts, plus he has face masks and many other items over at FastCustomShirts.com. While there at their website, you can sign up for their newsletter. Or you can give Joe a call at area code 361-814-9212. That's 361-814-9212.
to contact my friend T-Shirt Joe at fastcustomshirts.com.
You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum with Goose and Cronkite.
And welcome back. We're continuing our roundtable. We are joined by Cronkite,
Hello.
Elliott, and Ned. How's it going, Ned?
Pretty good. How are you all?
We are good. We won't have any Ned Saids this week, sadly. We will have, in the next couple of weeks, we'll have plenty of Ned Saids, correct?
Right.
And we're also, you need to be thinking about some Ned Saids for our debut on WXLR 104.9, March 21st. Ned Said.
I'll get on that.
So, start thinking about that. Okay, guys, we're going to start off talking about the Paintsville Train versus UFO incident. If you're not familiar with this incident, the following is an official report by a CSX engineer. At exactly 2:47 a.m. on January 14, 2002, while working a coal train en route from Russell, Kentucky to Shelbyana, Kentucky, our trailing unit and the first two cars were severely damaged and struck by an unknown floating or hovering object. I know it was 2:47 because my watch froze, and to this day shows that time. Now, we briefly talked about the Mantell incident, and his watch froze. Mm-hmm. And in this incident, the watch also froze. So, it seems like when you have a UFO, and it could be with the magnetic field, that watches stop.
Yes.
Okay. This story goes on, and we've talked about this story several times, but if you're new to the show, basically, in a nutshell, the train was coming around a bend and hit an object that was floating or hovering in the sky. There was two objects, and it damaged the train. When the engineers pulled into the train yard, when they limped the train, I should say, to the train yard, they were met by an army of workers. Vehicle doors slamming, guys running around in weird outfits, lights glaring from all directions, but one thing was missing: railroad officials. A guy named Ferguson shook my hand and asked me to follow him into the yard office. We did. Once inside, and they, have no idea who these people were, is what this guy says. He began to ask us hundreds of questions. They told us for our own protection, we'd be medically tested before we could leave. I asked repeatedly to talk to my railroad foreman or train master, only to have these requests denied, and they confiscated the conductor's cell phone. So that's just briefly an explanation of the Paintsville Train versus UFO incident. So in our round table, we're going to get into some discussions. Before we get started, Cronkite, Ned, we know a guy that works for the railroad. Mm-hmm. And Cronkite, or I guess it was you that brought the story to my attention. Go ahead and share that story with us.
Well, he actually had a picture of the locomotive, and when we talked about it, he was like, "Yeah, let me pull that back up and show it to you," and he couldn't find it.
Now, this was after we had talked about it on the show,
mm-hmm.
And like a week or two later, he tried to show a picture, and it was not on his phone. Which we have received emails before that. People's listening to us and watching us. So that makes me think right off the bat that somebody
Sure.
Got in his cell phone and deleted those pictures.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Because he was like, "Yeah, let me pull it up." And he said, "Let me go to the website." He's like, "We all talked about it,
right.
one day at work." And he's like, "Man, I can't find it. It's like it don't even exist." So I thought that was pretty weird.
Well, now, what I find strange about this whole incident is the speed at which everything took place. You had, first of all, the train was trailing with 16,000 tons behind it. and it hits this object, whatever it is, at 30 miles an hour, roughly. And then that object, there's no debris or anything like that. I guess assume it flies away.
That's very possible.
Which is pretty wild, pretty crazy, and to think about it. Now, with that being said, as soon as they get to the train yard at Paintsville, the locomotives and the train cars are disconnected and put into a tent, a makeshift workshop, I suppose.
Right.
And
So like all those old X-Files episodes where, they put up these tents and they've got
right,
people running around.
right, essentially that. Now, 8 hours later, so it goes on to say that those, the conductor and the engineer were put into a railroad vehicle and taken to Martin, Kentucky, where they went through questioning again after all the questioning that Ferguson, which, by the way, Ferguson is such a made-up CIA name.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, pick something else.
Generic.
So after 8 hours of rest, they were put back on a train to drive it back to Russell, and there was no sign of anything at Paintsville. Nothing. The locomotives are gone. The train cars are gone. The tents are gone. There's nothing. The speed at which all of this took place is incredible.
Right. So where were those helicopters and suited people? Where did they come from? Like, that's the question.
Out of the cave system.
Yeah, out of the cave system.
Well, what's your closest Army base or military base from Paintsville? Would it be the Bluegrass Army Depot in Richmond?
I would think so.
A couple
yeah.
hours away.
Yeah, I would think so. Unless there's something closer, maybe in West Virginia or something, but I don't think so. I think
I don't think there is.
Yeah.
One closer. I mean, considering with the interstate, Paintsville from Richmond, Richmond would just be what? I mean, I'm sure a military vehicle could be there in less than 2 hours.
Sure, probably an hour and a half, maybe.
So,
See, another thing that's weird about it, that same person, he said something along the lines like, an issue happens. He said local police isn't even allowed on the locomotive. He's not allowed to, you're not allowed to talk to anybody except for their own police,
Right, the CSX police.
Right.
And they essentially shuffle them out of their train,
Right.
and put them into a building, and they take over. They take over. They disconnect the engines, the cars, everything. They're doing their thing in these tents with these things. Probably, I'm assuming, looking for radiation. But what's mind blowing is there's no debris from this craft, whatever it is, and what material do you have to be made out of to not break a piece off when you break a piece off of two locomotives and 2 coal cars, and at 30 miles an hour, and not damage or destroy
It's
it?
definitely not made of a Kit Kat bar.
No, for certain.
Did it derail, did they say, or no?
No, it did not derail.
From what I gather, it was kind of a glancing blow, and it kind of went up and over top of the train, from what I can gather.
Now, and you have to look, more than a few miles up the road, but you had the power stations at Ashland. At that time, the coal power plants and so forth, that could explain why they could have been drawn to that area.
Sure.
So it's weird. It's weird because I went back and I looked for some stuff, and I found that so supposedly this happened, like you said, in between what we would call Russell and Paintsville.
Right.
At a mile marker 42. I don't know if that's a road mile or a train or however they figure that out, but mile marker 42 in an area they call the Wild Kingdom because there's so much animal life there. They've seen bears, elk, deer, everything on those tracks. Right. So what got me was I read a report online that when they saw, you can't stop a train once it's, going so fast, but the UFO is hovering there, or whatever it was, with spotlights into the creek. So
there are 3 of them.
Yeah. So my question is, what are they looking for in an area called Wild Kingdom?
Well, wasn't the one that they struck? Wasn't it sitting on the train? Wasn't it actually landed?
No,
it wasn't. It was just hovering.
It was hovering.
Okay.
I think they were all 3. The article I read said they were all 3 hovering there, and that it broke out a window, I want to say.
On the first car.
Yeah. But that's what gets me. Like, what would they be looking for in an eastern Kentucky creek? You know what I mean? Like, what is escaped or what is gone?
Right.
It makes sense.
Well, also, along with the guy's watch freezing, the entire electrical systems on both locomotives went haywire when, this happened. And in a story we talked about earlier, the Standford Abduction, you had the electrical systems in the car and the 67 Nova that went haywire.
And even talking about the Mantel incident, which could explain the crash of the airplane.
Right.
It makes sense. The car driving, accelerating by itself with a magnetic pull.
Well, early on when I first started doing the show, I think it was my second episode, I talked about this, and I did do a Freedom of Information request to some agencies. I did hear back from them, but we talked about that on the show too. It was just basically like, we can't find anything. This is being investigated further. If we do, you'll be the first to know, yada, yada, yada. Still, to this day, have not heard anything else back.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder,
It's also around the time somebody emailed or texted and tried to bluff us.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes. So,
That's very true. Now, I'll just go ahead and throw this one out there. If anyone working for this railroad or around this area that knows anything about this would like to speak with us, you remain completely anonymous. You can even, you don't even have to come to the bunker to talk to us. You can answer our questions through text or email or whatever. That way, there's no issue with you being conflict of interest or anything like that. Right. But we would love to talk to you because this is very interesting stuff.
Anybody at any point of the story. If you were there at Paintsville, if you were there at Martin, if you were on the train, if you knew them when they left from Ashland, if you were in the Shelbyana depot that they were going to, if you know of this story in any way, please contact us.
Mm-hmm.
Now this, and this is a story that we would definitely keep on following because, it's so, all right, and it even says on about any website that you find, it says, this is an official report by the CSX engineer. Mm-hmm. It says that on about anywhere you find this. And we've talked about this before, and let's get your take on this. It is well written, like a report as from a CSX engineer would write.
Yeah, it's not something that, like fan fiction, that somebody's going to get online and just type it up. I mean, there's a lot of
facts.
There's a lot of facts, and there's a lot of what I call jargon that is specific to the railroad industry.
Right.
And it's not something that somebody's just going to make up and throw out there. So, yeah, I believe it's an official report. It's just, this case, out of all the cases that you all have talked about, this one drives me insane because there's just so much to it. First of all, I think it's easy to say we're all in Eastern Kentucky right now, so this is close to home.
Yes.
This is a close to home. The railroads run through every place that we live. We were a mining, we were basically the mining capital of the world for a while there. But what are 3 UFOs doing over top of a railroad track and creek in Eastern Kentucky, and why could they not sense a train coming to get out of the way? Like, what was going on? What was so important to them that they couldn't see a huge train with 16 tons of whatever trailing behind it coming at them that they couldn't move out of the way?
It's probably one of their drones.
Well, if
it wasn't in the shape of a bird.
If you go on some message boards, they say that this could have possibly been military drones at that time because it was in the early 2000s.
I don't think that.
And that is one explanation.
Yeah.
But if that was the case, I don't think that they would.
It wouldn't have survived the hit, I don't think.
I don't think it would have, and I don't think they would have went and put so much manpower into Paintsville with the tents and the workers and everything.
Well, that makes it even more interesting because then what is the military lost that they're looking for and can't see a train coming? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. This is just one of those that it threw me for a loop when I first heard about it.
It is wild. It's a wild story. But now going back to that official report. Do you think that report was scripted, written by, hey, this is what you're going to write, by Ferguson? Hey, this is what you're going to write.
That's actually a good point.
Just the very basic information. I don't care what you actually saw. This is what you're going to say.
Yeah. I don't think so because he mentions the name Ferguson.
I think so. Like you said, Ferguson's a made-up name.
Well, so you think Ferguson made him write this?
I think he gave his statement, and they removed and added, then said, "This is it."
Well, I certainly don't believe.
Well,
with
I mean,
any,
if you trace back when this was originally posted, it was posted, and I can't think of the name of the website that I saw that on, but like a couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks at the latest after it happened, in 2002. And it didn't gain until a few years later. But it's the exact same thing.
Well, you're never going to convince me that they sent this much manpower into Paintsville. They were able to disconnect four large, or 2 locomotives, 2 coal cars, 4 large vehicles, inspect them in a tent, get them whatever, and move them out within 8 hours. You're never going to convince me that Ferguson, if that's his real name,
well, I'm sure it's not.
If that is his real name,
didn't script that report.
Well,
you're not going to put that kind of manpower into something like that and just let some rando conductor, engineer get out of there with the information. You know what I mean?
Maybe he wrote this report after, for CSX.
Possible, but then why would it be out there? Because then Ferguson, you know as soon as they, I don't know. I really don't think that's the case.
Well, I mean, and that's a very good possibility.
Well, one thing that I read too is that they actually put that team back on a train and sent it back to Ashland. Did you all read that?
Yeah, but it wasn't the same train.
It wasn't the same train, but when they went through Paintsville, none of that was there.
That's what I was saying. The speed at which everything happened, it was within 8 hours. They come back through nothing. You could not tell anything had happened there.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
I just think if Ferguson had him write it, that the name Ferguson would not have been in there. The stuff about the slamming doors and the tents and all that stuff would have been omitted. It wouldn't have been there.
Well, they want to give you a little bit. You know what I mean? If you had just said, "Oh, well, they hit a deer," you know what I'm saying?
Well, if they took these 2 locomotives and 2 coal cars, CSX is going to want to know where their property is. You know what I mean? So you have to write a report to say something.
But you go on in this report, and it talks about. Let me go to the last page here.
While he's looking for that, so I went online too while I was researching this and found some train like enthusiasts or whatever, I don't know, websites. And there were a lot of people that are like, yeah, I could see stuff like this happening. I worked for the railroad my entire life, and this is a tame story compared to some of the stories we could tell. It's apparently railroads are a big hotspot. So who knew?
Well, it's even better. Any railroad people want to talk to us, call us in.
I mean, even when I did this on the show, before you joined us, I talked about a second incident in Kentucky. That was, I think, in Central Kentucky, and then there was one in Indiana.
I seen the one in Indiana last night.
But, okay, going on your theory that Ferguson had him write this out, okay. First, if he did do that, how was this guy able to put this on the World Wide Web 3 weeks later? Or somebody with CSX put this on the World Wide Web 3 weeks later. Plus, he says, and this goes back to, let's see, after all of this, we were sent out on to Shelbyana, where we took rest 8 hours and then worked another train back to Russell. So, I mean, it's after the fact, after they left. How would Ferguson be like, all right, here's what I want you to put after?
That's a good point. But what I'm going to say is you have to look at the fact that four pieces of equipment from CSX are gone. They're whatever they've done with them. And I'm not sure if CSX is, but I'm sure it's a publicly traded company. And it's got to be open records for their investors to be like, hey, this is where your equipment is. And also, here's the report of what actually happened to that equipment.
Well, that's possible. You go on some of the websites, the Intel ones with the black vault, and you punch in Paintsville or UFO, nothing ever comes up like that. You can punch in train versus UFO. Nothing. I have not saw nothing as of yet.
I'll be honest with you, I'm reaching for straws as far as trying to justify why that report would have been written like that. I seriously do believe that someone in the government, whether it was Ferguson or whether it was a mole at CSX, made that report what it says. I believe that.
I think they let it still be out there, let it be released like the Bob Lazar thing. You know, they let him talk, you know, to try to debunk himself, to make him look like a, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's true. Because at no point does he ever say, does anyone say, all he says was, let's see, at least 3 objects had several searchlights on train there. The first object hovered above about 10 to 12 feet above the track, metallic silver in color with multiple lights. At no point does he say it looked extraterrestrial in origin, or all he's talking about is he sees searchlights.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
let's look at it this way then. You know, Eli's not here, but he was talking about how maybe it's government, you know, drones or a government craft of some sort, and the easiest way to deny that it's a government one is to put the ideal that it's extraterrestrial out there to the people around. Then you don't have people looking for government, you know, airplanes or drones. You've got people looking for UFOs. And,
yeah, smoke screen.
yeah, I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's very possible. Very possible.
And it doesn't make it any less interesting if it's a government drone. You know, it's still
right. No,
it's
yeah,
still one of those things that you want to be like, what is this? But,
Why were you there? What were you doing? You know?
That's it. Actually, I think it's a good point. It may be even more interesting if it was a government drone. You know.
yeah.
Well, in 2002, I have talked to people in the past that was in the military. Drones weren't a big thing then. They weren't, you know, as widely known as they are now.
Mm-hmm.
And the government did have secret drones, and they were experimenting stuff with them shortly after September 11th. So, you know, and they were, you know, real secretive of what they had and what their drones could do. But, you know, the point comes back. Why would you be in
the Wild Kingdom
in Johnson County? You know.
Why do they even need drones? They have the birds, right?
Right, okay.
That's your theory.
The Dale Earnhardt birds.
What's
you know, I think Ned's got something there, guys. I'm telling you.
so you actually believe the bird drone?
I actually don't, but I'm trying to get Ned to talk about it. So
Think about it. I mean,
you should hear some of his other theories.
it's possible.
hey, listen, you know, a theory is
Why is it possible, Ned?
I mean, that would be the best drone on the planet.
Is it?
Not saying it's true.
Is that the reason they perch up on?
On power lines to recharge.
I do have a friend in New York that says he swears he's never seen a baby pigeon.
Really?
He says he's just seen pigeons, never seen a baby pigeon.
Well, I know that.
But I mean,
why?
Because they're seagulls before they're pigeons.
They're what?
what?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
Seagulls?
We'll be right back.
Seagulls?
Seagulls.
Seagulls.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not taking a break yet.
No. It's time for a break.
Before we do move on to take a break, what's your closing thoughts on the Paintsville Train versus UFO?
I think that coming into this today, talking about UCSX Train versus UFO, I was convinced that it was a actual UFO extraterrestrial. But talking with Elliott and Ned and yourself, now, I mean, it's 100% either one or the other, a UFO or a drone.
Right.
Like I didn't come into this thinking it was a drone, but now that it's pretty interesting. I don't know.
Well, you know, to me, it's still fascinating that they won't put any more information about this out.
Sure.
So, you know, and this is something we'll definitely keep checking on and pursuing.
Listen, this is Eastern Kentucky. You can't keep, and I live here. Nobody can keep a secret. Somebody out there has to know something. Let us know. Let us know.
It's time for it to be out in the world. It's 20 years later.
Oh, good point. Good point.
It actually is. It's going to be 20 years next year, isn't it?
Yeah, next year. So what's your closing thoughts, final thoughts, before we take a break?
If you know anything, call in.
And how can they do that?
They can email us and they can text us.
You want to give those out?
That's Cronkite's deal right there.
You want me to do it? Okay.
Yeah.
606. Go ahead.
All right, yeah, if you want to text or call in, leave a voicemail or text, you can always reach us at 606-373-3396. You can also email us, goose@heretochewbubblegum.com, or myself, Cronkite, at heretochewbubblegum.com. And currently at the moment, until they get their
The two other guys.
The two other
Still
randos,
working on
still, until they get their other email addresses, you can reach them at heretechewbubblegum@yahoo.com. Attention, Ned or Elliott. We also have a Facebook page, and I don't know if you guys have ever used it or not, but there are comment sections and messages you can reach us at
It
as
just
well.
rolls right off the tongue. To use.
You know what? I'm getting better at my radio voice. This is Cronkite.
I like that. You want to take us out, Elliott?
Do I? Sure. You're listening to Here to no. See, you're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum.
Wait a second. Will you taking us out? I like Mexican food.
I do like Mexican food too.
All right, let's take us out.
All right, sounds good. I need
What's happening?
Two Pollo Locos. No, you're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum, the podcast. Don't forget, we're coming to WXLR. That is this month, and we'll be back.
You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. If Abraham Lincoln were alive, he'd listen. But he's dead.
Are you a horror movie fan? Yeah, I dig horror movies. Are you searching for a great internet horror talk radio show to listen to? Why, sure, that sounds quite spiffy. Then you need to tune into deadpit.com. It's the original horror talk radio show. Dead Pit is a show by the fans and for the fans. Uncensored and unbiased opinions are the goal of the show, giving fans honest reviews on new films and vintage classics of the horror genre. Make deadpit.com your #1 horror station destination.
Greetings.
We come in peace.
Hello, everyone. I'm Goose, and we invite you to join us Sunday, March 21st at 10 p.m.
I'm Cronkite, and you heard that right. Our show, Here to Chew Bubblegum, is coming to 104.9 WXLR.
We'll be discussing UFOs, time travel, lost treasure,
Bigfoot, paranormal, and other strange events.
Be sure to tune in March 21st at 10 p.m.
For Here to Chew Bubblegum on 104.9 WXLR.
Well, that was part 2 of our roundtable discussion. We hope you enjoyed it. It's a not as long show in the part 2 as we normally have, but hey,
Yeah.
we're here. Don't forget, next Sunday, the 21st, WXLR 104.9, 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Here to Chew Bubblegum takes the airways.
It's exciting.
I'm very excited.
It's very exciting.
Before we go, I want to say special thanks to Carlin for all of his voiceover work, for allowing us to use the music of Flannery. CK Uncle Bill, ST3B, the rest of the guys, deadpit.com. James Stacy, Greg, and the rest of the gang at The Edge Studios. That's The Edge, spelled TH3, over at YouTube. And T-Shirt Joe, fastcustomshirts.com.
And also, if you guys want to reach out to us, you can always call, leave a voicemail or text message, 606-373-3396. You can always email us, goose at heretechewbubblegum.com or cronkite heretechewbubblegum.com. That's CRONKITE. And also, you have Ned and Elliott. You can reach heretechewbubblegum at yahoo.com. Attention, Ned or Elliott, whichever one you want to look forward to.
And that's absolutely correct. We will be back next week with an all-new show. We don't know yet what we'll be talking about, what we may not be talking about. You'll have to find out next week, correct?
Exactly.
And also, there will be no midweek moment.
Mm-mm.
We're going to have a best of midweek moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's going to be one of the best moments. Your top 10 song list. Come on, man.
I hate you.
No, you don't.
I do.
No, you don't.
No, I do.
Anyway, thanks for joining, guys. We will see you next time on Here to Chew Bubblegum.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. Tune in next time as we dive deeper into things the government doesn't want us to know.